classes, namely perfection, satisfaction, and steadiness. When a devotee meets with Krishna, Prabhuji, can you please scroll down? When the devotee meets with Krishna in great eagerness, the state of meeting is called perfection. In the Krishna Karnamrit, Bilva Mangal Thakur describes how Krishna meets his devotee with peacock feather on his head, with merked jewels on his chest, and with his ever enchanting smile, his restless eyes, and his very delicate body. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 38th chapter, verse 34, Sukdev Goswami tells King Parikshit, "My dear king, as soon as Akrura, the chariot driver, saw Lord Krishna and his elder brother Balaram in Vrindavan, he immediately got down from the chariot and became greatly affected by affection for the transcendent from the chariot and became fell down upon his lotus feet to offer respectful obeisances. These are some of the instances of perfectional meetings with Krishna. When a devotee meets Krishna after long separation, the meeting is one of the satisfaction. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th chapter, verse 10, it is stated that when Lord Krishna returned to his capital Dwarka, the inhabitants said, "Dear Lord, if you remain in foreign countries for so long, we shall certainly be bereft of seeing your smiling face. Upon observing your face, we, your eternal servitors, become greatly satisfied. All the anxieties of our existence are immediately mitigated. If we cannot see you because you are long absent from Dwarka, then it will be impossible for us to live anymore." This is an instance of satisfaction in meeting Krishna after long separation. Krishna's personal servant, Dwarka, seeing Krishna at the door of Dwarka, forgot to offer him respects with folded hands. When a devotee is ultimately situated in association with Krishna, his position is called steadiness in devotional service. This steady position is devotional service is explained in book known as Hamsadutta. It is described there how Akrura, who was considered by the gopis to be terror personified, would talk with Krishna about the activities of the Kuru dynasty. A similar steady position was held by Uddhava, the disciple of Brahaspati, who would always massage the lotus feet of Krishna while down on the ground before him. When a devotee is engaged in the service of the Lord, he is said he is said to have reached the attainment of yoga. The English equivalent of the word yoga is linking up. So actual linking up with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, becomes when the devotee renders service unto him. Devotees situated in the transcendental rasa of servitorship render their particular service whenever there is an opportunity. Sometimes they sit down in front of Krishna to receive orders. Some persons are reluctant to accept this level of devotional service as actual bhakti yoga. And in some of the Puranas, also the servitorship in devotional service to Krishna is not accepted as the actual bhakti yoga system. But Srimad Bhagavatam has clearly indicated that the servitor relationship with Krishna is actual beginning of yoga realization. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd chapter, verse 32, it is stated that when devotees are engaged in the discharge of bhakti yoga, sometimes they cry from thinking of Krishna, sometimes they laugh, sometimes they become jubilant, and sometimes they talk in very uncommon ways. Sometimes they dance, sometimes they sing, sometimes they are actually engaged in the service of the Lord, and sometimes they sit down silently as if absorbed in sound. Similarly, in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 11, verse 34, Prahlad Maharaj says to his friend, my dear friends, as soon as pure devotees of Lord Krishna hear of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, who is the eternal servitor, who is the eternal reservoir of pastimes, or hear about his pastime transcendental qualities, they become overpowered with jubilation. Ecstatic, ecstatic symptoms are manifested in their bodies. They should they shed tears, talk flatteringly, glorify the Lord in a loud voice, and chant and dance in ecstasy. These ecstasies are always there, but sometimes they overcome all limits. All the symptoms becomes manifest to all. In the process of surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are six items: to accept everything favorable for devotional service, to reject everything unfavorable for devotional service, to believe that Krishna will always give protection, to identify oneself with Krishna's devotees, always to feel inability without the help of Krishna, and always to think oneself inferior to Krishna. Even though one may have full capacity to perform something on his own, when one is substantially convinced that he is always protected by Krishna in all circumstances, that feeling is called reverential devotion. Reverential devotion is executed in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and with his other protected devotees. When Krishna was residing in Dwarka, some of the elderly members of the Yadu family would occasionally, when Krishna was residing in Dwarka, some of the elderly members of the Yadu family would occasionally put some important matters before him. At such a time, Krishna would carefully give attention to those matters, and if there were some humorous topics mentioned, Krishna would immediately respond with a smiling face. Sometimes, when Krishna was executing his duties in the assembly known as Sudharma, he would all ask the elderly members for good advice. By such activities, he is manifest as the supreme spiritual master, as supreme executive head, the supreme intelligence, and the supreme power, protector and maintainer. Chapter 40, Reverential Devotion of Sons and Other Subordinates. True reverential devotion is exhibited by persons who think themselves subordinate to Krishna, and by persons who think themselves sons of Krishna. The best examples of this subordination are Sarana, Gada, and Subhadra. They were all members of the Yadu dynasty, and they always used to think themselves protected by Krishna. Similarly, Krishna's sons, such as Pradyumna, Charudeshna, and Samba, felt the same way. Krishna had many sons in Dwaraka. He begot 10 sons by each of his 16,108 queens, and all of these queens, headed by Pradyumna, Charudeshna, and Samba, used to think themselves always protected by Krishna. When Krishna's sons dined with him, they would sometimes open their mouths for Krishna to feed them. Sometimes, when Krishna would pat one of his Would you please scroll down? Sometimes would the son would sit on Krishna's lap, and when Krishna was blessing the son's head by smelling it, the others would shed tears, thinking how many pious activities he must have performed in the previous life. Out of Krishna's many sons, Pradyum, a son of Krishna's chief queen Rukmani, is considered the leader. Pradyum's bodily features resemble Krishna's exactly. Pure devotees of Krishna glorify Pradyum because he is so fortunate. Like father, like son. There is a description in the Hari Vamsha of Pradyumna's activity when he kidnapped Prabhavati. Pradyumna addressed Pradyumna addressed Prabhavati at that time and said, "My dear Prabhavati, just look at the head of our family, Shri Krishna. He is Vishnu himself, the supreme driver of Garuda, and he is our supreme master. Because we have become so proud and confident of his protecting us, we sometimes do not even care about fighting with Tripurari, Lord Shiva. There are two kinds of devotees engaged in devotional service with awe and veneration: the Lord's subordinates and his sons. The servitors in the abode of Dwarka always worship Krishna as the most respectable and revered personality of Godhead. There are the Lord's subordinates and his sons. The servitors in the abode of Dwarka always worship Krishna as the most respected places because it was sometimes found that the sons of Krishna acted very unlawfully in various places, but were nonetheless given full protection by Krishna and Balaram. Even Balaram, the elder brother of Krishna, sometimes unknowingly offered respect to him. Once, when Krishna came before Lord Balaram, Krishna was anxious to offer his respect to his elder brother, but at that time Balram's club was lowered down upon Krishna's lotus feet. In other words, the club in Balaram's hand offered its own respects to Krishna. These feelings of subordination, as explained above, are sometimes manifested as anubhav. When demigods from the heavenly planets came to Sri Krishna, all of the Krishna's sons followed them, and Lord Brahma sprinkled water from his kamandalu upon them. When the demigods came before Krishna, the sons, instead of sitting on golden chairs, sat down on the floor, which was covered with deer skin. Sometimes the behavior of Krishna's sons appears similar to the behavior of his personal servants. For example, the sons used to offer their obeisances. They were silent, submissive, and gentle, and they were always ready to carry out Krishna's orders even at the risk of life. When present before Krishna, they bowed down on the ground. They were very silent and steady, and they used to restrain coughing and laughing. Before They were silent, submissive, and gentle, and they were always ready before the Lord. Also, they never discussed Krishna's pastime in conjugal love. In other words, devotees who are engaged in reverential devotional service should not discuss the conjugal love affairs of Krishna. No one should claim his eternal relationship with Krishna unless he is liberated. In the conditioned state of life, the devotees have to execute the prescribed duties as recommended in the codes of devotional service. When one is mature in devotional service and is a realized soul, he can know his own eternal relationship with Krishna. They should not artificially try to establish Krishna in conjugal love. Their conditioned life in the material world is still most abominable. A person who has actually established his relationship with Krishna can no longer act on the material plane, and his personal character cannot be criticized. When Cupid came on one occasion to visit Lord Krishna, some devotee addressed him thus, "My dear Cupid, because you have have been so fortunate as to have placed your eyesight on the lotus feet of Krishna, the drops of perspiration on your body have become frozen, and they resemble kantaki fruits, a kind of small fruit found in thorny bushes." The Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the princes of the Yadu dynasty heard the vibration of Krishna's Panchajanya conch shell, the hairs on their bodies immediately stood up in ecstatic jubilation. It seemed at that time that the hairs on the bodies of the princes were dancing in ecstasy. In addition to jubilation, There are sometimes symptoms of disappointment. Pradyumna once addressed Samba with these words: "My dear Samba, you are such a glorified personality. I have seen that once when you were playing on the ground, your body became covered with dust. Yet our father, Lord Krishna, still look you up on his lap. But I am so unfortunate that I could never get such love from our father." This statement is an example of disappointment in love. To regard Krishna as one's superior is called reverential feeling. And when in addition to this, a devotee feels that Krishna is his protector, his transcendental for love for Krishna is increased, and his combined feelings are called reverential devotion. When this steady reverential devotion increases further, it is called love of Godhead in reverential devotion. Attraction and affection are two prominent symptoms of his taste. In this reverential devotional attitude, Pradyumna never talked to his father in a loud voice. In fact, he never so much as unlocked the lips of his mouth, nor did he even show his face filled with tears. He would always glance only at the lotus feet of his father. There is another example of steady and fixed love for Krishna in the instance of Arjuna's informing him of the death of Arjuna's son, Abhimanyu, who was also the nephew of Krishna. Abhimanyu was the son of Subhadra, Krishna's younger sister. He was killed at the Battle of Kurukshetra by the combined efforts of all the commanders in King Duryodhana's army, namely Karna, Ashwathama, Jayadratha, Bhima, Kripacharya, and Dronacharya. In order to assure Krishna that there was no change of love on Sumatra's part, Arjuna informed him, although Abhimanyu was killed almost in your presence, Subhadra's love for you is not agitated at all, nor has it even. I have seen that once when you were playing on the ground, I could never get such love from our father. Okay. Attraction and affection are two prominent symptoms of this stage. In this reverential devotional attitude, Pradyum never talked to his father in a loud voice. In fact, he never so much as unlocked the lips of his mouth, nor did he ever show his face filled with tears. He would always glance only at the lotus feet of his father. There is another example of steady and fixed love for Krishna in the instance of Arjuna's informing him of the death of Arjuna's son, Abhimanyu, who was also the nephew of Krishna. Abhimanyu was the son of Subhadra, Krishna's younger sister. He was killed at the Battle of Kurukshetra by the combined efforts of all the commanders in King Duryodhana's army, namely Karna, Ashwathama, Jayadratha, Bhima, Kripacharya, and Dronacharya. In order to assure Krishna that there was no change of love on Subhadra's part, Arjuna informed him, although Abhimanyu was killed almost in your presence, Subhadra's love for you is not agitated at all, nor has it even slightly changed its original color. The affection that Krishna has for his devotees was expressed by him when he asked Pradyumna not to feel so bashful before him. He addressed Pradyumna thus: "My dear boy, just give up your feet of inferiority and do not hang your slightly changes. My dear boy, just give up your feelings of inferiority and do not hang your neck. Just talk with me in a clear voice and do not shed tears. You may look straight at me and you may place your hands on my body without much hesitation. Without any hesitation. There is no need of exhibiting so much reverence before your father. Pradyumna's attachment for Krishna was always exhibited by his action. Whenever he was ordered by his father to execute something, he would immediately execute the order, taking the task as nectarian, even though it may have been poison. Similarly, whenever he would find something to be disapproved by his father, he disapproved by his father. He would immediately reject it as being as poison, even though it may have been nectarian. Pradyumna's attachment in anxiety for Krishna was expressed when he said to his wife Rati, the enemy Sambara is already killed. Now I am very anxious to see my father, who is my spiritual master and who always carries the conch shell known as Panchajanya. Pradyumna felt great separation from Krishna when he was absent from Dwarka at the battlefield of Kurukshetra. I do not take much pleasure in practicing fighting, nor I am interested in any kind of sporting pastimes. And what need is there to speak of these things? I do not even wish to stay at Dwarka in the absence of my father. When Pradyumna came back home after killing Sambar's Asura and saw his father Krishna before him, he at once became so overjoyed that he himself could not understand his joy on this occasion. This is an instance of success in separation. A similar This is an instance of success in separation. A similar satisfaction was observed when Krishna returned from the battlefield of Kurukshetra to his home at Dwaraka. All of his sons were so overjoyed that out of ecstasy they repeatedly made many mistakes. These mistakes were a sign of complete satisfaction. Every day, Pradyumna looked over Would you please scroll down? Would you please scroll down? When Pradyumna came back after killing Sambar Asura and saw his father Krishna before him, he at once so overjoyed that he himself could not understand his joy on that occasion. This is an instance of success in separation. A similar satisfaction was observed when Krishna returned from the battlefield of Kurukshetra to his home at Dwarka. All of his sons were so overjoyed that out of ecstasy they repeatedly made many mistakes. These mistakes were a sign of complete satisfaction. Every day, Pradyumna looked over Krishna's lotus feet with tears in his eyes. These signs of reverential devotion on the part of Pradyumna may be described in the same way they have been described in the cases of other devotees.
Can we stop here today?
Yes, yes, Prabhuji.
Today we read chapter 40. No, 41.
41.
No, this is 41.
40.
40 we have read now. ठीक है चलो
ओके प्रभु जी
वांशा पुत्र